Hey everyone, my name is Jason Lenny and I'm the product director for CI/CD. We're having our group conversation where anyone can come and view our slides and ask questions about the CI/CD section here at GitLab. Sid, it looks like you have the first question. Would you like to go ahead and vocalize that?
Yeah, thanks, Jason, for the great presentation. Can you elaborate on how we're going to get to accurate SMAU, like stage monthly active users? And there's a quote in the slide deck, but the current SMAU definition is missing one of the most common elements for the stage. Can you elaborate a bit on that?
Absolutely. So this is in relation to package, which if you look at that slide, shows, well, it basically almost doesn't appear. You can just barely see a tiny little, I guess that's a kind of orangish brown color there between verify and release. And the reason for that is that some of the most important SMAU measures are missing still for package stage. And in particular, it's the container registry is probably the one that would move the needle the most. There's an issue or an epic that's linked to there that collects those list of measures that we want to add. And so that's what that comment is referring to, very specifically about package and basically getting package to an accurate count. I know that we're moving towards potentially a new measure here, AMAU, and how this will relate into that will probably be different. We'll need to pick what our most important measure is for package if we haven't already, and then we'll have a new measure. But that's why I wanted to explain here why we see that package looks like hardly anybody's using it when it's really not the case.
Yeah, I totally think that's true. In fact, when you see alternatives to GitLab mentioned, it's like, hey, but they don't have a Docker registry. So I do think that's now has a lot of mass.
Exactly.
Can you elaborate a bit on what has to happen before we have Mac runners? We just launched a beta of Windows-based runners. What is Mac runners are planned for 13.2? What has to happen to get there?
Yeah, at a high level, we want to get through our rollout of the new infrastructure for Windows, which is super important, obviously, in order to learn, to make sure that we're able to manage different kinds of infrastructure classes as well. There's the permanent pricing question that we need to implement, how we're going to track and measure minutes that are more expensive. Well, there's a lot of different ways you can kind of state this, but some things cost 2 minutes per minute, or they per different price per minute. And so we need to figure out how that's going to work on the implementation side. We didn't need to solve that for the beta, of course, but once we get to pricing and actually charging people for these features, we will. The other thing that we're looking at that's kind of in the same space is charging for different sizes of machines. Whether we do Mac first or different sizes of machine types is well, we haven't decided anything there yet. We're just focused on the Windows runner. But all of those things are sort of in play. Mac comes with its own challenges as well in how you manage the infrastructure. In particular, licensing is a weird, more complicated thing on the Mac side. So those are some of the threads that will need to be reviewed before we can make good progress on that. I don't know if Darren is on the call, but Darren, did I miss anything? If you are.
Hi, yeah, hi, Jason. Can you see me? Hi, yeah, I'm on the call. No, you're spot on. But in terms of moving the ball forward, the next step in the next couple of weeks, Sid will start making some significant traction and getting things going on the Mac shared runners. We've been in good conversations with the partners, Mac Stadium, and so we'll be forming up a solid implementation plan here next couple of weeks. But everything Jason said, I completely agree with. The big thing, the one thing to mention, Jason, and we also have to think about in terms of pricing, is obviously the cost structure for the infrastructure is a little bit different than what we're used to. So that's something we have to review as we figure out the beta as well as the GA launch.
So is the holdup, like why, like suppose we want to do it faster, is the holdup taking decisions on pricing and doing for that, or is the holdup on technical implementations we have to make?
Yeah, I don't think there's actually a holdup, Sid. We actually, I mean, once we start starting coding it up, I don't think there'll be much of any sort of blockers in terms of us getting it done. We just need to get going now that we're launching finally the beta for Windows shared runners, and that's kind of off the plate. We can focus on getting this done. So I don't think there's necessarily a blocker at the moment. It's just, once we start getting the traction here next couple of weeks, things will start moving pretty quickly, I imagine.
So when is 13.2 planned for again?
That would be June or July, off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's almost half a year from now. What would it take to get Windows runners much faster, or Mac runners, Mac shared runners much faster than that?
Definitely, what we can do is focus on getting all of the initial sort of MVC coding started up in 12.9, right? And with that, we have a shot of actually probably delivering it by maybe an MVC by 13.0. So the key thing is actually getting the work started in 12.9 will get us a shot of actually delivering it sooner than say 13.2.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. That it's more, we have to sort of onboard this new process around Windows and then repeat it for Mac with slightly different wrinkles. There isn't a blocker per se, but yeah, I don't know why we couldn't get it done a lot earlier than June or July.
Yeah, and the high level June and July estimate said was just honestly, the engineering team was a little bit conservative, just kind of based on their experience going through the Windows shared runner, creating the custom executor, and kind of considering, okay, how much feedback are they going to get with the new Windows shared runner beta, and having to make sure that new autoscaler out. So there's a little bit of conservative estimations in there. Hopefully it's not the case when we actually start coding up the Mac shared runner. We actually have a pattern that we can follow from the Mac Stadium guys. So our hope is when we actually start doing the work, that is actually much faster and not as scary as everyone is currently assuming. So I think we really have a shot of bringing this thing in sooner.
Yeah, I found that we rarely go faster than our initial expectation. And even if we tried a few times to be more conservative in our estimates, and what we learned is that it didn't speed things up. It slowed them down even further. So I'd give that as something to consider, to aim for 13.0.
Yeah, definitely understood. Yep.
I think I'm next. So one, I want to say thank you on the Windows runners and the intention of replacing Artifactory. It's something we hear on our side all the time. So I know there's one of my customers that was deeply invested in the Windows runners. So thank you on that side of things. I had another recent customer that just came on board on .com for a large amount of users. And one of the things they were concerned about was, hey, my teams might just kind of blow past 100 minutes without even thinking about it. Is there a way to put some kind of limiter or notification or something that stops them from doing that down the road here? So just something that wasn't sure. I haven't found anything, but wanted to get your thoughts on that.
So they're talking about like a kind of surprise bill thing where
yeah.
Yeah.
I told them we weren't trying to be AWS, I promise.
Yeah, that's true. That's definitely true. So the way that actually works is done outside of the CI team, although it's very closely related, of course. So I'll have to follow up on that with the fulfillment team to ask, how those notifications happen, when the billing, if you can auto stop when you run out of minutes, or how that works. But yeah, we can figure that out and potentially look for a nice solution for them.
That would be great. Thank you very much. And again, thank you for Windows runners.
Hey, we're super excited to get it out. It's been due for a while, and I think it's going to make a real splash today when we get our first blog post out. So look for it on Hacker News and jump in there and help people get up and running with it. It'd be greatly appreciated.
Okay, I think I'm next. So excited about parent-child pipelines and implementing this into the www repo. And I just wanted to ask, how is this going to work with merge trains? Does each child pipeline get its own merge train, or it's just one merge train?
It's just one merge. So the merge will happen, and a good excuse me, a good way to think about the child parent pipelines is that the GitLab CI YAML remains the entry point for your pipeline, the one that's checked into the root. From there, you can set up really cool things where you've got like a mono repo is a really great example for this, where you've got 4 or 5 different projects inside of your single repo. You've still got your GitLab CI YAML in the root, but you can check in separate CI YAML files with the code in those 4 or 5 different individual projects. And then you could say, only if there's changes in this folder, then I want to start this child pipeline. Only if there's changes in this folder, I want to start this. So all of that is still initiated by a single merge request that comes into the project and starts that initial pipeline. So it should just work as normal, really.
Awesome.
Yeah, child parent pipelines is another really cool thing. I was really, really impressed. I have to take a moment and just say the team has done such an amazing job. Product managers, engineering team delivering. We caught all of the top spots in the release blog post, and everything is CI/CD in this release, and it's a lot of work from a ton of people to make that happen, and we achieved it this go around. It's really, really nice to see. I'm also really excited, since we're talking about child parent pipelines, about the follow-up feature that we've got coming in the next release, where you'll be able to, so right now all of the YAMLs that I was talking about need to be checked into source control, and then they can be started as child parent pipeline or as child pipelines. But what we're going to add is the ability to dynamically generate a CI YAML file and then trigger a child pipeline that contains whatever you dynamically generated. We've been going back and forth, and we get a lot of feature requests for things that add a lot of complexity to the CI YAML in order to handle these really complicated situations where you've got a lot of different people implementing these really complex rules between things, and how a great example is, well, monorepo just running those individual things, but a matrix build. So if you've got 5 or 6 different platforms that you target, these could be like, different architectures or whatever, and then you've got a couple different projects that you're building, you can, instead of building some kind of matrix keyword that a couple other CI systems have that is really confusing to use and makes your GitLab CI YAML hard to understand, you can just dynamically generate that on the fly based on what's checked in. So it can just generate that list, it can generate the jobs dynamically, and then start a child pipeline that does the things that are needed. So it's so much nicer. And it will really help us keep the GitLab CI YAML from becoming an overcomplicated mess like some of our competitors.
Very exciting.
Yeah. Mark, it looks like you're next.
Yeah, I noticed the verify stage now has 9 marketing categories, plus another non-marketing category. I'm wondering, did we officially relax the 8 category limit, or is this?
I don't know. It had 11 a couple days ago, and I fixed that. So yeah, I've been looking at this as well. I don't know. Actually, I don't know what the rule is anymore. Sid's on the call. Maybe he can answer.
I just checked. The page still says 8.
Okay.
The category.
Yeah, we
page
probably
itself.
need to clean this up. Yeah, it's difficult because there's a lot of stuff going on in Verify, and it's hard to pick one now that is a clear contender to be removed. We did combine a couple of the testing categories a couple days ago, which is how we got down.
Yeah, I saw that.
And then I've also got the templates team started, which is going to be focusing on onboarding analytics. I'm trying to figure out in what category do I slide that in as well. Probably in the end, we're going to have to figure out how to combine more of those testing categories into less categories, just because they take up so much of the capacity of the team. But yeah, it is an issue. I am aware. We're only 1 over, so hopefully it's not too bad. But
so the maximum is still 8, and I would make templates a non-marketing category. Like templates in the minds of people, it's not a product feature.
yeah,
We need to have that team and everything, but I wouldn't make it a marketing feature.
Cool. That gets us down then. Dustin, you're up.
Hey, so we've been working on trimming down the times for the Raspberry Pi builds on the distribution team. And so I'm trying to go through the build log, like step by step, and how long does this take to compile versus that. And I don't see that there's a way to do timestamps on the build logs. And I see there's an issue open about it, but there hasn't been much activity on it in the last couple months. This is just kind of something I expected to be there, I guess, coming from like Jenkins and Travis and stuff. I just wanted to get your thoughts on that as far as like being able to do post hoc build analysis and stuff.
Yeah, we actually had this feature delivered, but it was causing performance issues when loading the page just the way that it was. I don't know exactly what was happening on the back end. There was a technical issue where it was overcomplicating the DOM and somehow making the page take forever to display. It was also related to the collapsible build log sections. So I'll have to follow up where we are with that. There was a refactor going on. I sort of lost track of that at one point. But yeah, I agree. This 100% needs to be there. So I'll start with this issue and I'll chase it down and I'll make sure the comment ends up in this issue with what we're actually going to do here.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you for raising. Sid.
Yeah, there's an issue called forward scope package request to the global NPM registry when the package is not found in the GitLab private registry and it's in an epic. But the whole issue, as far as I could tell, does not talk about the dependency proxy. And I kind of thought that was what the dependency proxy already did. So I'm trying to make sure I'm understanding correctly.
Tim or Dan, do you mind taking this one? I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, I think it is very similar. This is a user-generated issue, so they don't mention the dependency proxy, but they're both about proxying requests. This one's for setting up an additional remote for NPM. So it's just a question of, do we start by changing the dependency proxy, which right now is mainly focused on just pulling images, or is the first iterative step that we could take is having the logic for setting up multiple remotes for the NPM registry, and then we could consider adding that logic into the dependency proxy further down the road. So it's just a question of implementation, but logically they are very similar features. It's just a question of how can we deliver value quickly and iteratively.
Yeah, so I'm not sure what the first step is and what the smallest step is, but are we aligned that the dependency proxy should not just proxy Docker images, but all the different package types?
Yeah, 100%. That's what our goal is. And this is kind of the first step. NPM is where we hear this request the most. So taking a step in that direction, I think it's going to come down to implementation. And if we can build it into the dependency proxy, but I think just based on some early conversations I've had with the product developers, it seems like there's a quick iterative step that we could have there, which is just set up logic for pulling from multiple remotes instead of having to build all of the NPM APIs into the dependency proxy. But that's definitely the direction that we want to go for all of our package managers, is to proxy and cache packages from multiple locations.
Okay, cool. And maybe consider leaving a comment articulating like, hey, in the future this should be solved by the dependency proxy, but this seems like an iterative step to get closer.
That's a good point. Yeah, I have to still groom that issue but yeah, I'll add in that note sooner rather than later.
Cool, thanks.
Mark, your question.
Yeah, so Jackie's already started to respond, but I'll verbalize the question. So on slide 9 for release, you show that by the end of the quarter, January 31st, 2 new categories are expected to hit minimal. I'm wondering if we are on schedule.
Jackie, do you mind taking this one? Yeah, go for it.
For sure. Release governance is on schedule and on track. That will be updated as soon as it gets pushed. Our release post gets pushed on the 22nd. Secrets management, on the other hand, the feature has slipped. We were conducting a proof of concept for the Rails implementation of secrets being handled in GitLab. And the issue that is dependent on that, allowing a user to set up secrets management vault in a Kubernetes cluster, was delayed. So we will be shifting that to follow in suit with the proof of concept and that implementation of secrets management in Rails.
Cool, thanks. I also noticed on that slide, you made a comment, or somebody made a comment about there's a dip in the graph, and you said that's explained because of the incremental rollout being pulled out as marketing category. I'm just going to challenge that. I think there's probably something else in the data that's causing that dip. If the whole category is removed, and I just looked at the MR to remove it, it would have removed before and after. It's not a time series kind of thing. So there's probably some other bug in the categories.yaml on the release side.
We'll take a look. Thanks.
Cool. Thanks.
Any other questions?
So I'm not sure why my comments keep being bold, but I'm not intentionally doing that, people. I want to be normal type, a normal text like everyone else. There's a survey where we're surveying people using Spinnaker. I think that's a great idea. any predictions about like why people are using Spinnaker and not GitLab? Like what's the stuff Spinnaker can do that we can't? My personal hunch is that it's a lot of like, we're also missing a lot of education on what GitLab can do for people, and maybe some things aren't convenient. But I wonder what people think. Is it mostly a feature gap? Is it a awareness gap? What's going on here?
Sure. Orit, are you on the call?
Yeah, I'm on the call. So
A bunch of research on this topic.
so part of the research is to figure this out, but I don't think there's a large feature gap because I have conducted a comparison in the previous milestone, and there were some missing features, but I don't think that's the prominent problem. It does look like a lot of things are easier to find on Spinnaker than they are on GitLab, and they kind of market themselves more for infrastructure. So I guess people that are looking for that type of thing take Spinnaker first. It also looks like they have a really nice way to show like load balancers and links directly from the pipelines to the actual production cloud dashboards. So it looks like things are easier. I wouldn't say it's a huge gap, but definitely awareness is a big one.
Awesome. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense what you said.
Hey, Sid, this is Darren here. I was just going to say, over at Nike, what kind of drew us to Spinnaker was just the potential ease of use of doing canary deployments initially over Jenkins. And that was like a big highlight feature. And then once we got started using that, then other things started to kind of follow along. So canary deployments was a big thing for us at Nike.
If I can just add a little color to that in my limited research on this. I don't think there's a feature gap. Like you said, we do canary deployments, we have these kind of capabilities, but it's more of a philosophical gap, and especially obviously between Jenkins, but even with us, where deployments are first-class entities in Spinnaker, but also the idea that at any given point in time, you have multiple deployments running. You've got a canary and a regular one, but you may have multiple canaries, and you don't just have like, oh, this is what, this is the Git SHA that's running, because there's several running at the same time. So there's like a couple of things that then make it easier because philosophically they made a choice to represent it differently, which I think we can capture. I think we can definitely get there, but there is a little bit of work for us to actually make it as easy.
That is super cool. Thanks, Mark. So multiple deployments in flight at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, that really seems to be the core thing. Like, if you're not doing canaries and blue-green or any other kind of advanced thing, then you probably don't care about Spinnaker, but the people that do obviously care about that. And we've added that capability, but we added, an MVC of it a while back. We don't really have blue-greens as a first-class thing, and they do. There's a couple other subtleties about that, like when the deployment fails halfway, how does it roll back seamlessly? Like, we've got a big button that does rollback, but we don't recover as nicely as they do. And you don't have to write the scripts. You just say, oh, I'm deploying to AWS, and Spinnaker knows how to do that. Whereas you'd have to write the script to recover properly.
Yeah, the other thing that we're doing here is sort of across the board on all the things that are falling under the progressive delivery umbrella, which is all under Orit. And so feature flags and how you use those, how you can use review apps as staged UAT, and looking at all of this is kind of for a given issue, for a given release, where is that deployed to, and it's no longer it's in production or it's in my staging environment like we used to do in Excel, but it's this kind of fractured, disaggregated state across a number of different environments. And it's really interesting. We're building a great solution, but we just don't have the recognition of a Spinnaker yet, but I think that we will get there. We're having some conversations with analysts on this topic and where we're headed, and I think we're going to be able to drive some excitement.
I think mine was next, but the document was having some troubles keeping up with things. I've had some customers ask us about Argo and Flux, and their concern was that there's a paradigm shift coming in CI/CD where it won't be put on by something like GitLab. It will go into a cluster and work there. And I wanted to get your thoughts on how we're going to make sure that the paradigm shift doesn't walk away from GitLab on this.
Yeah, we're monitoring these along with Tecton as well as kind of in a similar boat. And I don't know that these have really, I guess I haven't seen a big move to these yet. But if anybody is seeing anything like that, please do let us know. It solves a very specific problem and it does it well. And we want to learn from it and take those features and make sure that, deploying, for example, in a more GitOpsy sort of way, which I know Argo is more oriented around. And then the Tecton way is just like everything in Kubernetes, that we're not being left behind because we do things in certain ways. But we benefit also from our single application that has integrated CI features with packaging and with issues and with releases and with everything else. And so for us, that is a real advantage against some of these kinds of tools, which would be less integrated and would be more out there, but potentially do nicer workflows for technical folks in certain ways. So if you know anybody, I guess I would say, who's using Tecton with GitLab or using Flux with GitLab, or is interested in these and interested in having conversations, let us know. We would love to chat with them. But so far, we haven't seen a lot of drive towards moving towards these things. Elliot, looks like you got an exciting one real quick.
Yeah, just like as this call is happening, the Windows Shared Runners beta blog post is live, so it's out there now.
Woohoo! All right, and with that, it looks like we're at time. So thanks everybody, and really nice conversation as always.